When billionaire tech mogul Ethan Cross walked into the grand opening of Le Verve, the city's most exclusive restaurant, the whole room shifted to watch him. Cameras clicked, whispers spread, and even the waitstaff stood a little straighter. But it wasn't Ethan who drew the attention. It was his new girlfriend, Veronica Dale, a glamorous influencer, known more for her sharp tongue than her charm. She loved being seen, and she loved being cruel even more. When the young waitress approached with a warm smile and a nervous, "Good evening, sir. Ma'am, welcome to Le Verve," Veronica's lips curved into a smirk. "Oh, honey," she drawled, her British accent thick and mocking. "You tried to sound elegant, but your English sounds like a Google translation." The surrounding tables chuckled softly. The waitress froze, cheeks burning, and murmured a quiet apology. Her name tag read Clara. She had practiced her English greeting a dozen times in the mirror that morning. She'd even written it phonetically on a napkin. But now, under the weight of laughter, she wanted to disappear. Ethan chuckled, not maliciously but awkwardly, trying to play along with Veronica's cruel humor. "She's trying her best," he said half-heartedly, flipping through the menu. "Best?" Veronica scoffed. "If this is her best, I can't imagine her worst. I mean, it's good evening, not goo evening." The laughter at nearby tables grew louder. Clara forced a smile and nodded, hiding the sting in her chest. She took their order, her hands trembling slightly as she jotted it down. When she turned away, Ethan caught a glimpse of her eyes, polite, kind, but dimmed with humiliation. He looked back at Veronica, who was still laughing with her phone camera open, likely recording a snide restaurant moment for her followers. Something about it didn't sit right with him, but Clara wasn't who they thought she was. Just 6 months ago, she had been Professor Clara Mendez, a linguistics researcher at the University of Cambridge, specializing in phonetics and translation. Her research had been internationally recognized, but when her mother fell gravely ill in their home country, Clara left everything behind to care for her. By the time her mother passed, her savings were gone, her visa status changed, and the only work she could get in the city was waiting tables. Still, she carried herself with quiet dignity, never revealing her past. That night, though, Veronica's insult hit deeper than it should have. Because Clara had once taught English to people like Veronica, the kind who used it as a weapon, not a bridge. When Clara returned to serve their food, Veronica smirked again. "Do you even understand the menu you're serving? I'm sure you don't even know what carpaccio means." Clara stayed calm. "It's Italian," she said softly. "Raw beef sliced thinly and served cold, originated in Venice." The table went quiet. Veronica blinked, her smile faltering for half a second before recovering with a laugh. "Oh, so you can Google things too," she said, rolling her eyes. Ethan frowned slightly this time. He'd noticed something. Clara's accent wasn't broken, just soft, controlled. It wasn't lack of education. It was restraint. Midway through the dinner, an investor friend of Ethan's named Robert Haynes arrived and joined them. "Ethan, good to see you," he said warmly, shaking his hand. Then his eyes landed on Clara, and his face lit up. "Professor Mendez?" he said, shocked. The entire table froze. Clara smiled awkwardly. "Hello, Mr. Haynes," she said gently. "It's been a while." Veronica's eyes widened. "Wait, Professor," she repeated, incredulous. Robert laughed. "She lectured at Cambridge. She's one of the best linguists in Europe. I attended her talk on sociolinguistic empathy and cross-cultural communication last year. Brilliant stuff." He turned to Ethan, still smiling. "You're lucky your waitress tonight is probably smarter than half your executives." The table went silent again, except for the faint clinking of glasses from nearby diners. Veronica's face turned pale. Ethan's expression changed completely, curiosity mixed with shame, but Clara didn't gloat. She simply smiled kindly and said, "I'm just doing my job tonight. Everyone deserves respect, regardless of where they are." Then she turned and walked away to serve another table. Veronica felt something twist inside her chest, an unfamiliar burn of embarrassment. The rest of the dinner was awkward. She tried to laugh it off, to make jokes, but Ethan barely responded. His eyes kept following Clara, his mind spinning with questions. Later that evening, as the restaurant emptied out, Veronica cornered Clara near the service counter. "Why didn't you say you were a professor?" she snapped. "You made me look stupid in front of everyone." Clara looked at her gently. "You didn't need my help to do that." The words were calm, not cruel, but they landed like thunder. Veronica's lips parted, speechless. Ethan, who had approached quietly behind her, heard the entire exchange. He looked at Clara for a long moment before saying, "You handled that better than most would." She smiled faintly. "Kindness is free, Mr. Cross. So is humility." Then she walked away to collect the last table's bill. That night, Ethan couldn't sleep. Something about Clara stayed in his mind. The way she'd stayed composed, the grace with which she faced humiliation, and the sharp intelligence she'd tried to hide. The next morning, while Veronica filmed a day-in-the-life vlog in his penthouse, Ethan made a call to his HR director. "Find out everything about a woman named Clara Mendez," he said quietly. "And no, it's not personal. Just professional curiosity." By afternoon, the file came through, and what he read stunned him. Clara's research had once been funded by Crosstech Foundation, his own company's academic grant division. She'd even sent him a thank you letter years ago. He didn't remember it. But now, seeing her name again, seeing her fall from a Cambridge lecturer to a restaurant waitress, it stirred something in him he couldn't quite name. Guilt, maybe. Admiration. Or both. The next evening, Ethan returned to La Verve, this time without Veronica. When Clara saw him, she hesitated, but greeted him with the same professionalism. "Good evening, sir." "Good evening, Professor," he said softly. She looked startled. "I'm not that anymore." "You should be," he said simply. "You belong in a lecture hall, not here." She smiled politely. "Life doesn't always let us belong where we want." He leaned forward slightly. "Then maybe it's time someone helped change that." She didn't respond, but he could see something flicker in her eyes, hope mixed with fear, and somewhere behind them, hidden in a shadowed booth, Veronica sat watching, her expression unreadable. She had followed him there. And what she was about to do next would change everything. The night after Ethan returned to La Verve alone, things began to unravel in ways no one could have imagined. Veronica, who had secretly followed him, sat in the far corner, her rage hidden behind a fake smile and a glass of wine she barely touched. She had always believed she could control Ethan through beauty, fame, and scandal. But now, watching the world's youngest tech billionaire lean forward to talk gently with a waitress, her world started to crack. Every laugh Clara shared with him was like a dagger. When Ethan said, "You have more intelligence than anyone I've met in years," Veronica's nails dug so deep into her palm that her wine glass cracked. That night, she made a decision. If she couldn't have Ethan, she'd make sure that waitress lost everything. The next morning, gossip blogs suddenly lit up with headlines. "Billionaire seen having dinner with his waitress?" "Mystery woman steals Crosstech CEO's heart?" Photos, blurry, stolen shots, appeared online, showing Ethan and Clara at the restaurant. It looked intimate, but it wasn't. They'd simply been talking about linguistics and her lost research. Still, the media didn't care about truth. Neither did Veronica. She had sent those pictures herself. Within hours, Clara's manager called her into the back office. "People are calling the restaurant," he said nervously. "They think you're sleeping with a billionaire. I can't have this kind of publicity here. You're suspended." Clara's heart dropped. She tried to explain, but he'd already made up his mind. When she stepped outside, flashes went off in her face. Photographers yelling questions. "Are you the billionaire a secret girlfriend? Did he pay you?" She ran, her breath shaking, humiliation burning her eyes. By evening, her small apartment door shook from pounding. Ethan stood there angry and protective. "Who did this to you?" he asked. "You lost your job because of me." But Clara just shook her head. "Because of her," she whispered. Ethan clenched his jaw. Veronica. He left that night like a storm, arriving at Veronica's penthouse unannounced. She was filming a brand sponsorship, all smiles until she saw his face. Ethan, she began sweetly, I can explain. Don't, he cut her off coldly. You humiliated a woman for her accent. Then you tried to destroy her for being smarter than you. Do you even know what dignity means? Veronica laughed bitterly. Oh, please, Ethan. You're defending a waitress. She's beneath you. Beneath us. He stepped closer, his voice low and dangerous. No, Veronica. The only person beneath me right now is the one standing in front of me. She froze. He reached into his pocket, pulled out a diamond bracelet he'd once bought her, and dropped it on the marble counter. We're done. She sneered, masking her panic with venom. You'll regret this. That girl is using you. She'll ruin your name. He looked her straight in the eye. No, Veronica, you already did. Then he walked out, not looking back once as she screamed his name. Meanwhile, Clara had packed her few belongings into a small suitcase. She couldn't stay in the city anymore. The whispers, the headlines, the pitying stares, she'd had enough. Just as she locked her door for the last time, Ethan's car pulled up. He stepped out. No security, no entourage, just a man with remorse in his eyes. You're leaving? He asked softly. She nodded. There's nothing for me here anymore. That's not true, he said quietly. You still have your dreams, and I want to help you rebuild them. She shook her head. You don't owe me anything. You're wrong, he replied. I owe you my respect. You reminded me that character is worth more than money. He opened a folder he was carrying and handed her a letter. It was printed on official Crosstech Foundation letterhead, a full academic reinstatement and research grant in her name. You're going back to Cambridge, he said, fully funded. Your work deserves the world. Clara's lips parted, speechless. Ethan, I can't accept this. You already earned it, he said simply. I just made sure the world remembered. For the first time in weeks, she smiled, really smiled. Thank you, she whispered. Months passed. Clara returned to Cambridge, where her groundbreaking study on linguistic empathy gained international praise. But something inside her still felt unfinished. She often thought about Ethan, the man who stood up for her when the world mocked her, who saw her worth when she'd forgotten it herself. One spring afternoon, as she finished a lecture, she stepped outside into the courtyard and froze. There he was, leaning casually against a fountain, holding a coffee cup. You didn't think I'd miss your first lecture back, did you? He said with a grin. She laughed, tears filling her eyes. You flew all this way? You'd be surprised what a billionaire can do when he has got the right motivation. He handed her a second coffee. Double sugar, no cream, the way you like it. She blinked. You remembered? I remember everything, he said softly, especially the way you told me kindness is free. She smiled shyly. And humility? Still working on that part, he said with a smirk. They both laughed, the tension melting. For a moment, it wasn't a billionaire and waitress. It was just two people who had seen each other's souls in the unlikeliest of places. But fate wasn't quite done twisting their story. That night, as Ethan attended a university gala honoring Clara's work, Veronica appeared again, uninvited. Her influencer career had crashed, sponsors had dropped her, and she looked desperate. Ethan, please, she begged, cornering him outside. I made a mistake. I lost everything. Just talk to me. Clara saw the scene from a distance, but stayed still. Ethan sighed. Veronica, I hope you find peace, but I already did. He looked back at Clara, smiling. Veronica followed his gaze, her expression crumbling. Her? She spat. You're dating her now? Yes, he said firmly. And it's the best decision I've ever made. Then he walked to Clara, taking her hand in front of everyone. The crowd murmured, cameras flashed, but neither cared. For once, Ethan Cross wasn't in a boardroom or a scandal. He was in love. As they stepped onto the dance floor, The orchestra began to play softly. "I don't belong in your world, Ethan," Clara whispered. "Then I'll build a new one where you do," he replied. And in that quiet, graceful moment, the billionaire who once measured life in profits learned that the richest thing he'd ever find was a woman who taught him the language of respect, humility, and love. And somewhere far away, Veronica scrolled through social media, watching the viral clip of the billionaire and the waitress who spoke perfect English, perfect love, and perfect grace, and realized too late that some people rise not by speaking louder, but by speaking with heart.